Hello and welcome to English Language A-Level at Herts and Essex High School. I'm Mrs. Raymond, Subject Leader for English, and I'm delighted that you're considering this as one of your possible A-Level options. Before we get started, let's hear from Jess, one of our former students who studied English Language A-Level before going off to university. This is what Jess had to say. And during the course of this short presentation, we hope to outline the course, answer some of the questions that you may have, and to give you a taste of some of the content of the course. There will be an opportunity at the end for you to submit individual questions for us to answer. So, what does the course involve? A-Level English Language is assessed by 80% exam and 20% coursework. The content of the exam papers is outlined here for you, and as you can see, the course deals with very different topics compared to GCSE English Language. There is much more focus on linguistic analysis. Learning about how children acquire language and how language changes over time are areas which will be new to you. You will, however, remember analysing and comparing language in the media at GCSE, and will also have completed your own original writing, perhaps in the form of a speech or an article. Three main areas cross over these topics: gender and the study of how men and women differ in their use of language, the influence that technology has on our use of language, and how power is exerted through using language. For the coursework element, there's an exciting opportunity to carry out your own independent research into an area of your own interest. In the past, we've had students focus on the language of advertising, sports commentary, political figures, and contrasts in American and British English. In addition to the research essay, you will create an academic poster outlining the research process and your findings. So what will be assessed? Well, there are 5 AOs here. AO1 focuses on analysis and the need for good expression, and of course the important use of terminology. AO2 focuses on concepts and issues associated with language use. AO3 takes into account the importance of context when analysing and understanding language. AO4 assesses your ability to compare texts, and AO5 is the creative strand, which assesses the accuracy and the flair of your own writing. These assessment objectives will be met through a number of different approaches which are outlined here. Most of these should be quite familiar to you, so showing knowledge and understanding, applying concepts and methods, applying critical skills, using that accurate terminology, and using references to evidence your ideas. What is interesting is to cast your eyes over the language levels. At A-Level, you'll be encouraged to consider different aspects of a text: lexis, which is just vocabulary, grammar, pragmatics, which are meanings of words which vary depending on their context, and the discourse, or the organisation of a piece of text. One question which we are frequently asked is how is A-level different from GCSE? Well, at A-level there is a far greater expectation that you will be using technical terminology to describe features of language in order to give a more scientific analysis of language data. In addition, you'll be required to learn and to apply a wide range of theories to the data. Whereas at GCSE you will have focused on the written word, there's a greater focus on the spoken word at A-level, particularly when considering gender and language acquisition from children. So are there any similarities? Well, you will remember having to create a piece of transactional writing, perhaps, as I mentioned before, an article, a letter or a speech. At A-level you will have the opportunity to develop your writing skills further, but now it will be in relation to a topical language issue. Recent questions have asked students to write about how technology is ruining the English language or the importance of correct spelling. Let's have a look at the type of skills that you will develop during the course. Remember, we said that terminology was important. Have a look at the sentence in blue, pause the presentation and see how many word types you can identify here. So for example, fox is a noun. When you are ready, press play to see how you did. There may be some terms here that you are less familiar with. For example, snoozing as a continuous verb, indicating that the action is ongoing. Definite and indefinite articles might also be new to you. At A-level, your use of terminology will develop to a more sophisticated level. Here's another activity for you. Pause the presentation again and see if you can define each of these terms. Press play when you're ready. Again, some of these terms may be familiar to you, some less so. Audience positioning is an interesting concept which we will return to later. But it's interesting to note that text producers, or writers, have preconceived ideas about their audiences, and this is reflected in the language that they use. Consider for a moment the TV programme Love Island. What are your expectations of the audiences who tune in to watch this programme? Figures from the Broadcasters Audience Research Board make interesting reading. Perhaps you can consider other aspects of the audience for this programme. What about the Guardian newspaper? There is lots of information online about readership for newspapers, giving details about their interests, their earnings, their age, etc. This information helps to create a context for our study of the texts. In summary, this image suggests that readers of The Guardian are affluent, they are well travelled, they enjoy galleries and theatres, making an average of 4 trips to cultural places a year. They enjoy good food and they are generally progressive in their views. So, how might a typical Guardian reader feel about the programme Love Island? An answer to this question will influence the language used by the text producer. Let's have a look at an article from last summer's Guardian. Consider this question. How is the writer of a Guardian article going to position themselves when writing about Love Island in relation to their readership? Pause the presentation and read the article. You'll need to press play to read the second half of the article. As you're reading, consider the use of language in this text. What do you notice? Now press pause and have another look at the article and see what you can spot. Use the table to help you identify possible interesting features. Press play when you're ready. When approaching a text, you should consider the genre and the purpose of the data. Here we have an informational piece of data which raises an issue. Therefore, its purpose could also be considered to entertain, as it is encouraging the text receiver to consider their own ideologies as well as those of the programme, thereby encouraging debate and discussion. You may have noticed that this is from a web page, and as such has links to other articles highlighted and underlined in blue. This would suggest that the article will be read by people whose IT skills are good, suggesting young to middle-aged, educated people. Typically, older people would read a newspaper rather than access articles online. At no point does the text producer state their own viewpoint, but their choice of language implies their concerns about the programme and suggests the readers of The Guardian will share that ideology. Take, for example, the headline. This uses a quotation, thereby distancing the text producer from the creative director's viewpoint. But the use of the verb phrase attempts to justify implies a lack of success through the use of attempts. The verb justify suggests a response to a challenge. Therefore, the original quotation, referring to the show as merely entertainment, appears to be dismissed as inadequate in response to the lack of body diversity on the show, a topic that the progressive readership of The Guardian may value. The reference to Jim Waterson as media editor gives him power as someone with a knowledgeable and experienced perspective in media. Therefore, readers are likely to respect his viewpoint. The text uses an image which reinforces the language used and the ideology of attractiveness, body image, and the lack of diversity in the appearance of the contestants. The opening paragraph of the article repeats many aspects of the headline, thereby further reinforcing the ideology of body diversity. A further quotation and reference to Richard Cowles as the creative director again gives him power. His ideology is given further credence through the adjective hit, which implies that the ideologies behind the programme have ensured success and that the right body image is a case of need for the programme to be a hit, at least in the business world, again implying that this ideology may be at fault and hinges on profit. A semantic field of success is reinforced in the next paragraph, where the superlative modifier, most high-profile shows, suggests that this ideology, which the text producer considers may not be shared by Guardian readers, is seen by the show as essential. However, the continuous verb phrase growing, linked to scrutiny and the noun impact, suggests that this ideology may be at fault and perhaps short-sighted. The text producer attempts to strike a balance of power in the article by referring to the contrasting ideology of Jamila Jamil, and there is obvious criticism implied in the use of the adverb of manner, simply, which suggests a lack of thought, care or consideration. By describing the contestants to lounge around a pool in a Spanish villa, the text producer positions the audience to share an ideology or belief that this is pointless and perhaps a waste of time. The verb lounge suggesting a lack of formality and purpose. The adverbial phrase, quickly came under fire, suggests to the text receiver that Cowles' ideology is under attack, and the reference to entertainment reminds us of the headline, and the quotations continue to attempt to justify the choice of contestants. The reference to the Radio Times adds further power to the article and assumes that the audience will be familiar with this publication and respect its validity. Cowell's comments, and therefore his ideology, seem genuine as they have been reported in a highly regarded publication and worthy of the criticism by body image campaigners. The quotations from Cowell's in the next section appear contradictory. On the one hand, Cowell repeats his views, but the final compound sentence using the connective but appears as an afterthought, perhaps to simply pacify critics, and the inclusion of this final sentence could be treated sarcastically by the text producer. It's interesting to note that Cowell's reported statement uses colloquial language, which could be an attempt to appeal to his audience in an informal way. His use of the third person plural pronouns, we and our, may be an attempt to distance himself from the views expressed, suggesting a shared ideology by the production team. The references to suicides adds further implied criticism to the programme, now implying that the programme is dangerous to those who take part. The text producer assumes that the audience know the Jeremy Kyle show, as no explanation is offered. This is an example of Fairclough's theory of members' resources, where writers assume that their audience will understand something and it doesn't need further explanation. This continues in the final section, where Ofcom and the House of Commons Select Committee again represent powerful institutions which have become involved in the debate about this programme. The text producer assumes that that educated audience of the Guardian readers will understand both what these bodies represent and also the serious nature of the criticism of the programme, which is under scrutiny by these influential groups. The final section, referring to contact details of the Samaritans, adds a further seriousness to the article, reminding the reader of the dangerous consequences of the programme, and again implying that the audience are positioned to be concerned about the programme and to share the text producer's viewpoint. The wide-ranging references to the UK, USA and Australia suggest a global danger. It would be interesting to compare an article such as this one with an article on the same topic in a different publication, where the expected ideologies would be different. We hope that this has given you a taste of what to expect in A-level English language and the level of analysis which you will be required to develop. It is a fascinating subject and one which you will come to apply to daily life around you. I'd like to finish by leaving you with a couple of our students once again sharing their experiences with you of studying English Language A-Level at Herts and Essex. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name's Sophie and I took English language at A-level. I really enjoyed English at GCSE, so I always knew it was something I wanted to continue at A-level. However, I was unsure which English I wanted to choose. In the end, I opted for English language because it was a lot more analytical, and that was the aspect that I really enjoyed at GCSE. It also tied in really well with media, which was the other option that I was taking. Plus, I'm really not a big reader, and English literature required a lot more reading, so overall I just think English language was a lot more suited for me. The one thing I would say that's really important to know is that English language at A-level is completely different to English language at GCSE. You don't really do any of the creative writing aspect that you do at GCSE. That might be a good thing or a bad thing for you, but it's an important thing to note. I'd also say that English language was my most challenging A-level. but nevertheless I did really enjoy it and I found a lot of the topics really interesting. It also balanced out really well with my other options. For example, I took psychology, which had a lot of content that you had to remember and revise for exams, whereas my revision for English was a lot more based on technique rather than content, so it is good to balance out with other options. Overall, I'm really glad that I chose English at A-level. I really enjoyed it, and I wish you all the best in making your decision.
Hi, my name's Ella and I studied both English language and English literature at A-level. I particularly enjoyed English language due to the fact that I found the topics that we studied were quite relevant to the everyday world kind of going on around us. Topics such as child language acquisition, which is basically where we studied a piece of text, which could be a conversation between a 2-year-old and their mother, or a 5-year-old and their younger sibling. And we kind of got to look at and kind of try and understand why they're using the language that they are. Or language in the media, which actually was my favourite topic at A-level, due to the fact that I found it so interesting looking at the different linguistic techniques that could be used in a newspaper article such as The Guardian, or a blog post which could be about food or like recipes, and just why they use the language that they do in order to appeal to a greater range of audiences. I would say that if you are looking to study English language at A-level because you enjoyed it a lot at GCSE, that's a really good thing. It's not bad at all. But one thing that you should be aware of, and I'm sure the teachers will make it clear to you, is that English language at A-level is very different to what you do at GCSE. There's no creative writing aspects at A-level, which is something you would be used to at GCSE with the exams. And it's a lot more analytical in the sense that you're building on the skills that you've learnt at GCSE, but you're kind of taking them to a different level, which is something that you wouldn't have experienced before. English language was really enjoyable. There is quite a few bits of terminology to learn, but don't let that kind of intimidate you, because with the support of the teachers at Herts and Essex and the amount of practice that you get, it becomes second nature to kind of be picking out these different like terms or phrases, and once you've practiced it enough and you've kind of got that formula for answering the exam questions, it really does become not daunting whatsoever. I achieved an A grade in English language, and I can hand on heart say that I wouldn't have been able to do that without the support of the English teachers at Herts and Essex. They support you through everything, and give you the best advice that you could possibly need for the exams, and put you in the best position that you possibly can be to achieve grades that I didn't even think was possible for me. I hope this has helped for you and that you're all staying safe during this lockdown. Yeah.